Hi, I'm Brandon Bowers, pastor of New Life Church, located in Locust, North Carolina. And I wanted to say thanks for stopping by and checking out our YouTube channel. I hope that today's message is both encouraging and challenging to you and your walk with Christ. If you're in our area sometime, we would love to have you come check out one of our services, each and every Sunday at 8:45, 10:15, and 11:45. We'd love to have you come out. And I hope that you enjoy today's message.
Yeah, this is Houston, we're copying. F2, I'm at 1/160th second. Yeah, we can see you coming down the ladder now. Roger, we copy. Pretty good total job. I'm going to step off the lamp now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Good morning. So glad to see all you guys here. It's awesome that our team from Haiti got down there, did great work this week, and got back safely, so it's good to have them back and just to spend some time with you this morning. And, appreciate everybody coming up, praying over us and that kind of thing. It may be your first time here and you think, well, didn't expect that. That was, a little bit non-traditional, not used to that kind of thing in church. Hey, that's what we do. If it's the norm, we just sort of throw it out the window, right? And we'll do something different. But glad you're here. We're in the middle of a series through the book of Colossians. That we simply, and this is so creative, right? Colossal is what we're calling it. I mean, go figure, right? So if you've got a Bible, maybe a phone, tablet, something that you're going to read scripture with this morning, how about go ahead and taking that out and find Colossians chapter 3. We're actually going to spend a great deal of time in Colossians chapter 3. Our message last week was from a few verses there. Going to spend some time there today and next week. So there's just a lot of truth that's packed into this one chapter that I really felt the Lord impressing me to share with you. And so go ahead and find that. And as you're turning there, just want to sort of get your mind going and thinking along the lines that we're going to be talking about this morning. What do you do? You don't have to answer this out loud like embarrass yourself or anything. But what do you do when maybe you've been standing in line for quite some time? A long line. I don't know if you're at an amusement park or you're at a restaurant or something. If you're at a restaurant and you're standing in a line, it tells you what kind of restaurant you're in, right? But, you're standing in line and then someone just comes right along and then cuts right in, takes a spot in front of you. What do you do about that? How does that make you feel? Or for those of you who maybe you travel to Charlotte for work, you got a lot of people in here probably do that, and you have to fight the traffic. And so you get on 485 or you get on 85 or 77 and traffic comes to a standstill. And then that one guy, you know who he is, that one guy comes blazing up the shoulder, right? You see him coming, up the shoulder, and then slams on brakes right there in front of you and just starts nudging it over, right? What do you do about that? Or parents, I've got two kids myself. When your kids grab your toothpaste tube and squeeze it like right in the middle, makes me want to squeeze them right in the middle of their neck. I'm just going to be honest with you. But they do that. Or your spouse leaves their dirty clothes on the floor, dirty dishes in the sink. Or maybe the neighbor, they let their dog poop in your yard. What do you do about that? I'll tell you what you do. If you're from the South, you give them what for. You ever heard of that? Everybody knows. If you're from the South at all, you know what I'm talking about. You give them what for. You just let them have a piece of your mind. You sort of unleash the beast, right? You just tell them how low down, how dirty, how inconsiderate, lazy, whatever else you want to throw in there, just how disrespectful they are. If you're a Baptist deacon, you throw in a few expletives just to drive the point home, right? That's just the way we do. That's the South. You let them have what for. Maybe you've been given what for before, right? You know how that feels. Like I said, I'm not going to ask if you've actually given somebody what for. That could be a little telling, a little embarrassing. But we sort of know what that's all about. I remember very clear in my mind years ago a time when I was sort of given what for. I was 18 years old and was helping manage a pizza restaurant. And this girl, it's the first time I'd ever had to fire anybody. That's sort of the situation. This girl, we worked well together. She liked working my shift, and I enjoyed having her around us. We were friends. We had a good relationship. But this one night, she came to work, and apparently she had come in to work that evening believing that talking with her boyfriend was more important than doing her job. And so they would come in, and he would sort of motion her over, and I'd find them talking, just standing around. She's not on break. She's still on the clock, just talking, talk, until I would go over and sort of break things up. Listen, hey, you got things you need to do here, and I would tell him, you need to move it along. I mean, this is not the time and the place to be carrying on a conversation. You can wait till she gets off at 9 o'clock, no big deal. But this happened over and over and over. And then a little later on in the shift, I got to looking around, and I couldn't find her anywhere. I searched the entire restaurant, went in every room, back rooms, game rooms, everything that we had, and never could find her. It's just like she vanished for like 15 or 20 minutes. Come to find out, she had gone outside, and she was in the car with her boyfriend, and they were talking because they had some issues, they need to deal with like right then. Hey, I understood that. I mean, I'd had girl problems, Hey, I get it. So I decided to let them finish their conversation. However, I knew it was my responsibility to sort of put a squash on this. So when she walked back in through the door, well, then she and I had some issues. Like we were going to have a little talk. I met her at the door and just said, listen, apparently you don't value working here very much. And so we don't really need you anymore. So if you would, go clean out your locker, take your things. It's time for you to go. Like we don't need you. And she just fell apart, like meltdown. Right there. As if getting fired from her high school job at a pizza restaurant like ruined her whole working career. It was going to devastate her for a lifetime. She fell apart and she called mama. All right? That was her only ride from work. Her boyfriend had dumped her, I guess, and now she's fired. She don't have a way home. She calls mama. Mama shows up and mama ain't happy. She finds me and lights into me. Like right there in front of all of our customers, gives me what for? Cussing me, yelling in my face, just telling me how rotten I am, and just anything she could come up with. Well, after all this went down, her and her still unemployed daughter, they left. And I don't know why, but she and I never really had a very good conversation or a good relationship after that. Something about giving someone what for that sort of puts a squash on a relationship, doesn't it? It hinders things. If you've ever been a part of that kind of conflict, you know that it's very difficult then afterwards to have a good, thriving, and healthy relationship with that person. Well, Paul in Colossians chapter 3 shows us that there's a much better way to resolve conflict, to handle conflict, disappointment, attacks, or unmet expectations with someone who's disappointed us in a way that, now it's not easy, I'll go ahead and give you that. But Paul's way gives us a better chance at having a colossal relationship rather than a catastrophic one. But the problem with this method is simply this. Instead of giving someone what for, Paul's method may leave some of us asking what for. Like, why would I want to do that? It's a little contrary to our nature. So look with me in Colossians chapter 3, verse 13. Paul says, forbearing one another and forgiving one another, if any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do you. And that's from 2000 edition King James Version. But Paul says, if you want a healthy relationship with someone, with anyone, if you want a colossal relationship with anybody, someone with whom you've had a disagreement with, forbear and forgive. Forbear and forgive. Now, what does that even mean, right? What does it mean to forbear and to forgive? Well, forbear, that particular word, stems from a root word that simply means to hold back, to restrain myself. In other words, I'm going to endure, I'm going to suffer through, I'm going to permit or to put up with some things rather than lash out and retaliate. It's the idea of having patience with somebody, overlooking certain offenses instead of, responding in anger or responding to them in like manner, treating them the way they simply treated you. To forbear is to live out the wise words of Proverbs chapter 19, verse 11, which say, a man's wisdom gives him patience, and it is his glory to overlook an offense. Now, there's a lot of biblical and even present-day examples of people who are able to forbear and to have patience to permit with other people. But think about Jesus. I mean, he's got to be the ultimate example of someone who showed patience with others, who was able to forbear with others. He held back when many of us would simply lash out. I mean, in his relationship with his disciples, I mean, come on, these guys, they're told over and over and over again who Jesus is, what he's all about, and what his mission is. But it seems every time they immediately sort of forget that, ignore it, and they say or do something that's just really dumb. Like Matthew chapter 16, Jesus, he's again told them, listen guys, I'm going to go into Jerusalem. There I'm going to suffer many things at the hands of the priests, the scribes, the Pharisees, and so on and so forth. I'm going to be beaten, I'm going to be crucified, but I'm going to rise from the dead. Immediately after this, verse 22 of Matthew 16, we're told that Peter, he pulls Jesus to the side and rebukes him. Like, really? He rebukes Jesus. But instead of lashing out, instead of giving Peter what for, Jesus just basically said, Peter, you don't have a clue what you're talking about. It would be best if you just get out of the way. And he moves on. He sort of lets it go. He moves on. When many of us, we might have retaliated. All right, you going to talk to me like that? Well, I got a few words to say to you too, right? But Jesus showed great patience. He held back when many of us would have chosen to lash out in retaliation. Forbear and forgive. So now that we sort of know and understand what it means to forbear, to bear with, to have patience with somebody, what's it mean to forgive? And you're probably thinking, well, I know what that means. I mean, everybody knows what it means to forgive, right? And most of us, we know exactly what it means to forgive someone, even if we don't like to do it. Like, we know what it's all about. We just resist it. But forgiveness, in a general kind of way, in the Greek is understood as doing something that's pleasant or agreeable to or for someone else. It's simply to grant or to show them some kind of favor. But most of us, we think about forgiveness in a more specific way. Specifically in how we respond to someone who's offended us or who's done us wrong. And in that way, obviously it means that we're going to choose not to hold a grudge. We're going to choose to to give graciously and freely a pardon or a release. In the words of my 4-year-old, we're going to let it go, right? All you Frozen fans, you love that, right? We're going to release them, let go, release them of any kind of retribution. I'm not going to hold to their account a wrong that has been committed. I'm going to wipe the slate clean. And Jesus said, we're going to turn the other cheek. That's what it means to forgive. So instead of giving someone what for, just letting them have it, Paul says if we want to build healthy relationships, if we want to have colossal relationships, whether that's with a friend, a family member, spouse, child, coworker, neighbor, whoever it is, then we have to learn to forbear and to forgive. We got to learn to overlook and let go of offenses. And so, like I said, for many of us, that leaves us asking, what for? Like, why would I want to do that? See, you don't understand what they did to me. You don't understand how they talked to me and what they said about me. Why would I want to overlook it? I can't just let that go. So, since you asked, let me give you what for. Like not the tongue lashing kind of what for. But this is the reason why. This is the reason why you should forbear and to forgive. This is the reason why you should overlook offenses and release people from retribution and fury that is yours. Number one, because it strengthens character. I don't know if you've ever heard this. Probably you have. Especially if you've been around someone you might deem as an old-timer, right? They might say something in response to having to do chores or some responsibility that nobody really likes to do, but it's essential. They'll say, you need to go ahead and do it. It's good for you. Like, it builds character. You ever heard somebody say that? Sometimes I wonder if they even know what that means. Like, is that something that you just say because you don't have anything else to say, but you need to know, you need to say something to get me to do whatever it is I'm supposed to do? I mean, is that what we're dealing with here? Maybe so. But if you really think about it, there's a lot of truth in that. Go ahead and do that. It's hard. It's difficult. It's not very pleasant or enjoyable, but it's good for you. It'll build character. When Paul was writing to the Christians in Rome, he said in Romans chapter 5, verse 3 and 4, that suffering produces perseverance or endurance. And perseverance, endurance produces character. See, when we forbear, when we forgive, nobody said it was going to be easy, but enduring. Remember, that's one of the ways to define to forbear, to endure, sort of to put up with and to overlook. When we do that and we go against our nature to retaliate, our nature to lash out in anger, Paul says it strengthens our character because it develops self-control. Self-control promotes overall spiritual and relational health. So what would I want to do that for? Well, because it strengthens your character. Number two, because it produces growth. Now, I know that it's football season, and probably a lot of you in here big Panthers fans, right? Yeah, I admit, Pastor Panthers fan. Okay, good. So we've gotten past that. See, I grew up, I'm not real big on football, just don't hold it against me. I'm just not. It's not my favorite game. But when I was growing up, in this area, North, South Carolina, and even in Tennessee, most people were either Washington Redskins fans or Atlanta Falcons fans. Now, for all you politically correct people, yes, I said Redskins. Like, don't get all worked up. I don't know what the deal is over, calling a team Redskins. But anyway, that's just the way it was. I grew up rooting for them. But let's just think about the game of football and the ball in particular. Now, unless you're a Tom Brady fan or Patriots fan, have you ever sat and wondered how it is that a ball stays inflated the entire game? Like, how does that work? Like, think about it. You have this one little ball. And, I mean, it only weighs, maybe a couple pounds or something? And you have these huge guys, like 250, 300 plus pounds. And for 2-3 hours, they're throwing this ball up and down the field, catching it, dropping it, falling on it, piling on. They'll spike it in the infield, in the end zone. They'll, do their little shuffle. I mean, all that crazy stuff for all this time. And you would think if the ball could talk, you would think at some point this ball would say, all right, I've had enough. That's it. I'm out. I give up. I quit. This is too much. And then it would just go just die, just to nothing, right? You'd think that's what would happen, but it doesn't. How is it that the ball stays inflated for the entire game after so much abuse? I'll tell you why. Pressure. Pressure. You see, the pressure on the inside of the ball, the pressure that is from within being exerted outward is greater than any and all pressure that's being exerted from the outside inward. And see, that in itself teaches us a huge lesson on how to develop colossal relationships with other people. There has to be a greater pressure on the inside than what's on the outside. If I don't want to just explode or to deflate, just fall apart, then I need to learn to forbear and forgive. Because, see, this ball can endure, it can tolerate, it can put up with, and it can overcome any and all pressure exerted on the outside because the pressure on the inside is greater. And that's what we're doing when we forbear, when we overlook these small and petty offenses, and we choose to forgive people of wrongs that they've committed against us, then it raises the threshold of our ability to endure. It raises the threshold of tolerance. And see, basically what I'm saying is it increases the pressure on the inside. Well, unfortunately then, the only way to really know if you've created enough pressure, enough patience, enough tolerance, if there's enough growth that has taken place on the inside, the only way you can really find out is what? Pressure on the outside. Somebody else is going to wrong you. Somebody else is going to say something. Somebody else is going to stab you in the back. We'll see just how much pressure there really is. And that's important. It's the only way to really play a football game. If you want to play a game of football, you need an inflated ball. If it's flat, the only way to increase the pressure is to pump that thing up until it gets to a point to where you know, all right, it's ready. It can take the abuse. And I know that we're studying through the book of Colossians, but the Bible is just absolutely amazing in its continuity. And in James chapter 1, verse 2 and 4, James is speaking of this very thing. He says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials, whenever you face pressure of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Perseverance, or that endurance, must finish its work so that you may be mature." See, it's growing you. "And complete, not lacking anything." So pressure. The pressure to endure, the pressure to forgive, the pressure to exhibit restraint and to let things go, he says, produces patience. It produces an even greater ability to forbear and forgive the next person. And that pressure, that patience, in turn, brings about spiritual and relational maturity. It produces growth. So forbear and forgive. And we're asking, what for? Why would I want to do that? Because it strengthens your character. It produces growth. And then number 3, because it promotes peace. Promotes peace. I want us to look back at the verse that we're focusing on today. I don't want us to get too far from it. Colossians chapter 3, verse 13. "Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another." What for? Why do I want to do that? Because it promotes peace. It enhances the chances of a colossal relationship. What's the other alternative? Blow your top. Get angry. Lash out, retaliate. Treat them the way they treated you. Give them the cold shoulder. Instead of holding back, you hold a grudge. That's the other alternative. You can do those things. And what usually happens? It makes matters worse. It inflames the situation. And you know what? It's even worse than that. Is that typically it contaminates your heart, your spirit, and your mind, and your attitude toward that person. You'll find it very difficult to have any kind of healthy relationship with that person. And I've heard it said like this: if we choose to be angry, to hold on to resentment and bitterness, it's like drinking poison and hoping that other person's going to get sick. That ain't going to happen. It doesn't work that way. You're not doing yourself, you're not doing the relationship any favors by giving them what for? By letting them have a piece of your mind or giving them a taste of their own medicine. It's just not going to work. Paul said it this way in Romans chapter 12, verse 17, about how to deal with these situations. He says, "Don't repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful To do what is right, that means it's easy to do what's wrong. Be careful. Pay attention. To do what is right in the eyes of everybody. And if it is possible, as far as it depends on you. Like you can't change what they do and how they react and what they say. But as far as it depends on you, he says, live at peace with everyone. Because when we choose to forbear and to forgive, to promote peace, what I'm finding in my own life, when I treat people who have wronged me in that way, or they've offended me, it gives me time, it gives me space, it gives me the ability to do two things that help me gain traction toward peace with them. One, it gives me the time or the ability to reflect, simply to think, to sort of understand why what happened may have happened, to try to see their side and maybe what's going on in their life. It gives me time to reflect and think about why did they do or why did they say what they did. But it also gives me time, it gives me the ability to resolve, sort of to calm down, just to cool my spirit a little bit, to collect myself and determine what is going to be the best, most productive and peaceable way to respond to this person and this situation. That's what it means to forbear and to forgive. The alternative, the other side, lash out, get angry. The Bible speaks very clearly about that in Proverbs 15 verse 1. It says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. James, he again speaks of this issue. James chapter 1 verse 19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. For a man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Paul, James, the writer of Proverbs, found all throughout the Bible, they're all saying the same thing. Harsh words, quick words, destructive responses, they don't come from taking the time and giving ourselves the opportunity to reflect and to resolve and promote peace. They come from acting and responding harshly, too quickly, without giving it much thought. But here's number 4, the final reason that sort of answers the question for us. What for? Why should we forbear? Why should we forgive? And I think it's key to making and keeping colossal relationships for a lifetime. Number 4 is this: it enhances testimony. It enhances testimony. That's the last part of chapter 3, verse 13. He says, bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. You might remember when Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? He said, well, there's actually 2. Love God and love others. See, I happen to believe that one of the best ways to demonstrate that you have a genuine relationship with Jesus is to love, forgive others just like Christ loves and forgives you. To extend to them grace, mercy, patience, just like He's extended to us. I mean, doing that just proves that there's been a genuine change in us. And now think about this. If you're that person who's been known, maybe you're known right now. You're that one that everybody else knows as the person, if you cross them, if you say something wrong to them or you do something they don't like, you look at them the wrong way, man, they're going to let you have it. She or he's going to give you what for. And you're known for being that kind of person. Just think of the kind of testimony and the kind of influence that you could have over people. If instead of doing that, instead of giving them what for, you decided, I'm going to hold back. I'm going to restrain. I'm going to overlook and let go of some offenses. I guarantee you others would see a difference. They're going to begin to wonder what has happened, what's taking place in her life and his life. Because then you're demonstrating biblical Christianity. You're displaying the Spirit of Jesus, who loves and who extends grace and mercy. And many times what's going to happen is that will develop into an opportunity to share with that person, or to share with maybe even a whole office of people what Jesus has done for you, in you, and through you. So the next time, someone cuts you off, they insult you, They say something or do something that hurts your feelings. They disappoint you. They offend you. They give you a nasty look or a nasty attitude. Instead of giving them what for, take a moment, just pause and ask, what for? Why? Why should I not lash out? Why should I not tell them exactly the way that made me feel and exactly how bad that hurt? Why? Why should I forbear? Why should I forgive? Because it strengthens character. It produces growth in you, first of all, but also it'll promote growth in that relationship. It will promote peace. It's a way to gain traction toward peace with that person instead of constantly inflaming and re-inflaming the situation. But then most of all, the most powerful thing, it enhances testimony. It shows that the Spirit of God, the Spirit of Christ Himself, is in you, working and displaying Himself through you. And you might be sitting here thinking, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, I want to see my relationships, especially this one, because, man, I'm really struggling. I want to see it go from not so good to great to colossal. I would love that, but I just can't seem to do it. First of all, do you have a personal relationship with Jesus? Really? Do you? Do you know the Jesus of the Bible? Not about Him, but do you know Him personally? Because it's only through a relationship with Jesus that any of us can do what I'm talking about. It's only until we've known and we've experienced His love, His patience, His forgiveness, and His long suffering that we can even remotely think about extending it to somebody else. So that's number one. Number two, if you're confident, if you're sure in your relationship with Christ, but you're still thinking, this is just something I'm struggling with. I can't seem to do this. I don't know what's holding me up. I'm so angry. I'm just so bitter or whatever it is. I just can't seem to do it. Listen, Romans chapter 8, verse 10 and 11, Paul says something like this. If the Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of Him who raised Jesus from the dead lives within you, then He will give life to your mortal bodies. In other words, if the same Spirit that raised Jesus Christ from the dead is living in you, and if you profess to be a follower of Jesus, then that's the case. If that same Spirit lives within you, then He will give you the power. He will give you the ability to do exactly what He's saying you must do. It's not dependent upon your power and what you can do and the discipline that you can muster. Rely on the strength of God's Holy Spirit within you. Give Him the opportunity. Give Him the opportunity to show Himself, to illuminate your life, and to do in and through you what only He can do.